When it comes to energy weapons in Fallout, laser pistols are in the lowest tier damage-wise. That's not to say there aren't any really cool unique ones, like Pew Pew, but that's not the one we'll be taking a look at today. Can you beat Fallout New Vegas using only the compliance regulator? What's so special about this gun, you may ask? Well, if you score a critical hit, the target is paralyzed for 10 seconds. Aside from that, it's very bad as a weapon. It does less damage than a laser pistol and shows it later on, so let's get into the rules. There is only one. I have to use the compliance regulator as my only weapon. Also, I streamed the first 3 hours of this and forgot to record it, so the first few minutes of this video won't look as pretty as the majority of the rest, and my face will be up there too. It's also set to very hardcore. Ready? Let's go. Character creation. My favorite. I tried to name my character the Regulator, but it came out as the Regulator, so I'm sticking with it. I made him a very handsome lad and assigned my special. Critical hits were crucial in this run, so I maxed out luck and divided up the rest into perception, endurance, and intelligence. I did a speedrun of the Doc's questions and chose Built to Destroy and Fast Shot as my traits. So far, I already have a 13% chance to score a critical, and that had nowhere to go but up. I spawned in the compliance regulator because I'm not wasting the first 5 minutes of this video doing literally nothing. Don't like it? Too bad, moving on. The first stop as always was to Chet's to sell my things and buy some stuff. I felt like being evil this playthrough, so I already knew I was going to side with Caesar. This led me to choose the Run Good Springs Run quest this time around. I talked to Sunny Smiles and did a bit of her quest, then talked to Trudy, who pointed me in the general direction of Joe Cobb. After a nice chat, I agreed to kill Ringo. This is what that great battle looked like. I paralyzed the poor bastard standing up. At least in the beginning couple of hours, this weapon will be decent enough. I went back to Cobb, harassed the townsfolk for a while, and it was already time to kill the citizens of Good Springs. While I had ammo, the fight wasn't that bad, but I ran out incredibly fast and was forced to sit and watch as the powder gangers very slowly whittled away the townsfolk. Also, apparently Doc Mitch is some sort of god, as it took the powder gangers 5 literal minutes to kill him. Once the battle was over, I leveled up to 2, put the points into energy weapons, and picked Hunter as my perk, which came in very handy in the late game. I really didn't have to kill anything on my way to Prim, and made sure to loot the NCR ammo boxes when I arrived. The convicts outside were easy to kill with my paralyzing pistol. Honestly, the best part of this challenge is the stiff-as-a-board falling animation they have when they get paralyzed. I went to the Vicky and Vance, inquired about my package to Johnson Nash, and got ready to clear the Bison Steve of convicts for the easy experience. When I thought of this challenge, I figured the paralyzing effect would be good, but it's kind of overpowered. I just shoot the convicts until they're paralyzed and kill them without problems. I should also mention that the paralyzing effect can stack, so if I constantly shoot an opponent while they're down and keep getting criticals, they are definitely not getting back up. I cleared the first floor, broke Beagle when I paralyzed him, and left. Johnson Nash suggested I get new sheriff, and I actually reprogrammed Prim Slim for once, which is way faster than the other options. I leveled up to 3 and put the points into science, which I would need if I wanted to make max charge energy cells for the most damage. I had very little ammo left as I made my way to the Mojave Outpost, but I killed what ants I could, and made it unscathed. When I arrived, I bought some ammo from Lacey, which was the only reason I came here first instead of Nipton. Some jackals bothered me on my way to Nipton, and I knew not to mess with them, if only to save my ammo for someone special. Poor Oliver. He won the lottery, but spent the remainder of his life like boxcars. A quick talk with Vulpus, and a looting of the only house I felt would be worthwhile for this playthrough, and it was back to the Mojave Outpost, so I could inform Sergeant Kilborn and Ghost about the attack on Nipton via the Legion. I leveled up to 4, put the points in science again, and picked the Educated perk for more skill points at level up. Malcolm Holmes had the pleasure of meeting me while I waited, and also had the pleasure of not being able to feel his face. One more quick run to Chet's and Johnson Nash's, and it was time to head to Novak. The Bighorner were about as annoying as usual, and I made sure to avoid the Vipers this time around to save up on ammo. I did get the chance to see the Traitors and the Legion fight, and it was great. Except for the Night Stalkers. That was actually terrifying. The good news, and this happened 90% of the time I paralyzed a Night Stalker, they would flip majestically through the air like an incredibly deadly ballerina. Nothing of interest happened on the rest of the trip, and I was in Novak ready to get the next useful item for this playthrough, the first Recon Beret. It would give me +1 perception, but more importantly +5 crit chance. It was as easy as stealing a poor woman's key, and then leading that poor woman to a deadly trap from which she would never come back. After that, Boone gave me my new hat, and I was up to 18% crit chance total. That's pretty decent. I also decided to do Come Fly with me for some experience and some ammo, as there are pretty decent quantities of it at RepCon. Ghouls don't pose much of a threat to me, and I'm in the building before I know it. After I loot a few corpses, I do leave so I can go to Good Springs and make some max charge energy cells, but it's right back after that. I talk to Chris and Jason when I get there and decide to take a different route this time around. The Nightkin needed to leave the basement, and I didn't really want to kill them, so I talked to Davison and killed Harlan instead. Then I found the Stealth Boy shipping manifest, returned it to Davison, and all the Nightkin left. Once I returned to Jason Bright, there's not much else to say. I already had some toy rockets from Novak, and the thrust controls were 500 caps from Old Lady Gibson. I went up to the viewing platform, set the rockets to crash into each other, and watched the fireworks. I leveled up to 6, put the points into energy weapons, and picked the Vigilant Recycler perk for better energy cell crafting. Of course, the game broke on me here, and I had to use console commands to leave the area, but that's a usual occurrence by now. It was time to head to Boulder City and talk to Jessup. On the way, I harassed some fire ants, and that was it. I couldn't complete the quest the way I wanted to at this time, so once I was done talking to Jessup, I left and made my way to the strip. I stopped at the crashed caravan for some combat armor and other valuables, and sold what I could to the gunrunners. I leveled up to 8 somehow, and put the points into repair, picking the Scrounger perk. Even though I had this perk, it never seemed like I got extra ammo, but oh well. A quick jaunt through Freeside and a stop at the Silver Rush for some free ammo, and I'm at the strip's gate. Once I'm inside, I'm hassled by Victor, who wants me to go to the Lucky 38, but I decided to head to the Gamora first, seeing as I needed more chems. I continued to ignore the Lucky 38 and went to the tops instead. I used a Stealth Boy so I could sneak the Compliance Regulator in as a weapon, and immediately went for Benny. I figured it would be very hard to try and kill all of the chairmen, so I made it a bit easier for myself. Turbo really does go a long way. Once I had the chip in my hands, then I was off to the Lucky 38 for my well-deserved reward, and my next quest. As usual, I bugged the Lucky 38 for the followers, and grabbed the snow globe from the cocktail lounge for extra caps. Cottonwood Cove was my next target, and I had to go through ghoul-infested hills to get there. Of course, it was always a one-on-one fight, so the ghouls didn't stand much of a chance. Aside from that, the trip was a breeze, and I was on the raft to the fort in no time. After a short talk with Toomer McGee, I was told to destroy whatever was in Mr. House's bunker. I also got some quests from Vulpus and Lucius. What Caesar didn't know was that I planned on activating the rest of the Securitrons for House, if only for a little extra experience. This was comically easy, as I can paralyze both the Protectrons and the turrets for some reason, but I'm not going to complain. I leveled up to 10 midway through and put the points into barter and picked the Finesse perk. I was now up to 23% crit chance. Nearly 1 in every 4 shots would paralyze the target. Talk about power. I activated the Securitrons and made my way back to Caesar for my next task, which was to kill Mr. House. Funnily enough, I was just about to go there and tell him I activated his Securitrons. I wasn't even going to chance at this time and took some turbo right after I opened the door. That definitely saved me from exploding all over the walls. While I did get a critical on House, it didn't do anything cool, so moving on. Back to the biggest of brain boys, and it was already time to woo the boomers over to our side. I made sure to stop at the Old Mormon Fort for some healing and medical items as I was running low, and then it was time for something I knew wasn't going to be fun. While I was streaming, somebody brought up some very special armor that you can only get from the Divide. Elite Riot Gear. This stuff was good. Decent DT and 5% crit chance. I needed that armor, so that's where I was going. Of course, I was way too low of a level for it, but I'm sure I'll be fine, right? I enter the missile silo and make my way to Eddie, who will lovingly accompany me on my death trip. We talked a bit, and he opened the commissary for me, which will play a pivotal role way later on in the challenge. I bought some ammo that I can convert to energy cells, and continued forward until I found my first sentry bot. Oh yeah, that's actually just the worst thing ever. At least I can stun lock him, but that's not even the worst of my problems. After I mess around in the silo some more, I open the path forward and take my first steps into hell. Marked men. These guys are seriously no joke, especially at this low of a level. The first couple aren't the worst thing ever, but they start to come out of the goddamn walls. I leveled up to 12 for all it's worth, put the points into repair, and picked Pack Rat so my ammo would weigh less. The next part was just god-awful. There was a marked man with red glare, a very fast-shooting rocket launcher, and a bunch more on the streets. I took care of Mr. Explodey first, and attempted to kill the ones down below from a good vantage point. Attempt is the key word there. The Compliance Regulator is finally starting to show its incompetence in battles with more than 2 people. After a few deaths, I managed to take them all out and kept moving. I had to blow up a warhead with the laser detonator, which is technically a different weapon, but let's be honest, it doesn't do any damage as long as I don't kill anyone with the explosion, so it's cool. After a very short respite from the marked men, they came back swinging and attacked me while I wasn't looking. I could kill a few of them, but not all of them. There just wasn't enough healing to sustain the damage they were causing me, so I took out my laser detonator and exploded a nearby warhead to reveal the path forward. Don't worry, no one died from it. If things couldn't possibly get any worse, we get introduced to a new enemy here. Tunnelers. Tunnelers are fast and do a lot of damage. Not to mention, I can't use flares or flash grenades to scare them off. So I just ran like the scared little wuss I am. Thankfully, it was a short enough walk to not be difficult at all, and I made it up onto a highway and talked to Ulysses, who isn't pivotal in this challenge at all, so screw him. There were a few marked men, nothing I couldn't handle thankfully, and I picked up some normal riot gear from a military shipping crate. So, my dumbass thought that the advanced riot gear was the elite riot gear, and I made my way up the highway further to a secret hidden alcove, where there were a bunch of satchel charges waiting to take my life and fling my body to the high heavens. After some expert marksmanship, I was able to get the advanced riot gear and was very confused as to why it didn't have the extra critical chance. I did the research and realized that I had to go further in. Joy. I still put the advanced riot gear on, and for some reason it allows me to wear the beret and the helmet, which looks like the actual stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. Considering I still had to go forward, I needed to get some more ammo, so I fast traveled back and did my rounds at all the available merchants. Once I was done, it was straight back to the hellhole where I was faced with death claws. Now, you might think they're scary normally, but they're even scarier when they're paralyzed. Their hands move constantly, and I feel like it's encroaching on my personal space. Just look at what that index finger is doing. It's creeping on me. Aside from that though, once they're paralyzed, it's game over for them. Further down the road, I was faced with more satchel charges, which are for some reason incredibly difficult for me to notice. Probably because I suck. Bonesaw, a named markman, was fairly easy, so that's good. I launched the missile so I could actually continue into the divide, and leveled up to 14. I put the points into repair, and picked the toughness perk because there really weren't any better perks for me to pick. After the run-in with the death claws, I had no ammo left to my name, so I decided to come back to the Mojave for a bit. I was stopped by one of the Frumentari on my way to Hidden Valley, and received the Caesar's Favor quest, which would give me free loot every couple of days. After I found Hidden Valley, I decided to make use of that and grabbed what I could from the Legion crates. Nothing too nice, but it'll help in the long run. The run to Hidden Valley was just so I could fast travel there later, and I started to make my way towards the boomers. I immediately noticed something odd when I did not get fired at while I was running towards the base. It was probably because the game was broken. It had not loaded in any of the proper assets for the boomers base, including the people to shoot at me, and this is what it looks like. Look at the texture on that building, isn't it just fantastic? And then the game crashed. After a quick load, everything worked a-okay, and by that I mean I took some turbo to avoid the crippling of my legs. I made it to the gate, was taken to the Pearl by Raquel, and started the Volaire quest. I first started by looting many of the things I could, including the howitzer firing mechanism, which I didn't know you could just take without doing the quest. Me, being the Legion fanboy I am, immediately returned to Caesar and fixed the howitzer up real good. Since I was here, I decided to do Vulpes' quest and made my way to Vault 21. I stopped those bad Omertas from killing Martina Grossbeck and was informed about the most important thing I could do in this challenge, making the sex with Sarah, the owner of Vault 21 Hotel. All I'd have to do is bring in 30 vault suits and then we'd, make the sexing. Or whatever the kids are calling it these days. I'm putting that quest on hold though because there are things I have to do first, like buy more ammo. I was also starting to become dehydrated, and there is a special drink that one can only get from Cannibal Johnson's cave. I call it the Forbidden Koolaid, and I drank deep from that special Kool-Aid even though someone was detecting me, and I felt empowered. After the Enlightenment, I returned to Vulpes with the news that Martina was safe. He then pointed me out to Captain Ronald Curtis at Camp McCarran if I wanted to do some more extracurricular activities involving explosives. When I met Curtis, he told me of his plan to blow up the tram and frame Private Crenshaw for it. With the plan in my noggin, I went to Colonel Shu and offered him my services. This is a fairly straightforward quest: plant the explosive in Crenshaw's locker, take care of Crenshaw by making sure he never feels his legs again, and placing a bomb in the tram. After that, I reported back to Shu and told him that I'd found the culprit, and then talked to Curtis again, who said he'd put in a good word to Caesar for me. Not really sure what to do next, I wandered around for a while until I came upon Camp Forlorn Hope. Using my expert bearings, I made my way over to Nelson and had a lovely chat with Dead Sea, who wanted me to kill all of the important people at Camp Forlorn Hope. How can I say no to that? I'd say the most difficult part of this was the few NCR heavy troopers that were outside, but everything else was pretty self-explanatory. Go in, shoot them until they can't move, and then kill their faces. Except for the heavy troopers. I left those guys alive and ran away once everyone else was dead. Back to Dead Sea, who was having a three-way in the bathroom. He was very pleased with my slaughter, and I was awarded a machete that I couldn't use. Good. Feeling inclined to do more of the main quest, I went back to the Boomers and grabbed the Ants Misbehaving quest from Mikkel. I also stopped in at Argyle's and fixed his patience up as best as I could. I made sure to talk to Loyal and get the Sunshine Boogie quest too. And who could forget story time at 12 in the morning with a child who should very much be asleep. My repair was high enough to repair the solar arrays without spare parts, and while I was talking to Loyal to get the quest, I had the sonic emitter given to me so I could kill the ants in one fell swoop. I returned to the respective quest givers and talked to Mother Pearl so I could get the Lady of the Water to be the Lady of the Sky. I made sure to stop by Jack so I could get the rebreather and made my way to Lake Mead. Not much to say, I just deployed the ballast bags, walked to the shore, and used the detonator to bring the plane up, finishing the Boomer's quest line. It was time to go back to the big, sexy, bald man with a bad case of the brain owies to take my next quest. I was to go to the White Glove Society and have them align with Caesar, but I decided to forego this quest for now in order to collect dog tags for Aurelius of Phoenix. This would involve me slaughtering as many NCR troopers as possible, which is going to be pretty fun. I started my slaughter at Camp Searchlight and then made my way to the Mojave Outpost, where I fired upon Sergeant Kilborn and all the other troopers in the immediate area. With the advanced riot gear on, this is fairly easy as they don't do that much damage. Before I knew it, I had the whole outside area clear and leveled up to 16. I put the points into medicine and picked jury-rigging as my perk, which would help me take care of my riot gear and the Regulator. After that, I stopped in the barracks, bought some stuff from Lacey, and then brutally murdered her along with the rest of the NCR troopers in the barracks. I felt like I had a decent amount of dog tags, so I returned to Aurelius with my haul, which was 14. And now I was liked by the Legion. There was still more work to be done though, so I made an ammo run and stopped back at Cannibal Johnson's cave because I was feeling very thirsty. Restocked, I went back to the Mojave Outpost and entered the main building. Oddly enough, no one attacked me in here, and I got Major Knight to repair my gear. I decided to leave well enough alone for now, as Major Knight was incredibly skilled at repairing items, and I figured he'd be useful later. Feeling brave, I decided to make my way to Camp McCarran and attempted to take care of the troopers within, but that was a very bad idea. Realizing my mistake, I walked over to Helios and killed all of the troopers outside instead. I also killed all of the troopers inside, too. Back to Aurelius with more tags. Sadly, it's not enough tags to get me idolized, so we're going to keep going. To Prim, where I killed the few troopers that were there. Then it was to Camp Golf to take out all of the unsuspecting troopers within the tents. I went inside of the Ranger headquarters, not to kill the Rangers, but to steal all their stuff. After the slaughter, back to Aurelius, and I'm still not idolized. God, it takes a lot of dog tags, doesn't it? Time to stack some more bodies. I decided to head back to Camp Forlorn Hope, hoping there'd still be a few troopers left alive, and there were inside of the command tents. And for some reason, each one of these normal NCR troopers had 3 dog tags. Hoping that was finally enough, I returned to Aurelius, and yes, I am now idolized, which would make them give me more crates of loot via Caesar's favor. Another ammo run, and a run to Cannibal Johnson's for a quick drink, and we're back in the Divide. God help me. I still really wanted that elite armor, so I had to ride an elevator that constantly spawned tunnelers until we hit the bottom. That's not going to happen. Thankfully, I had a spare stealth boy, took off my armor, and crouched in the corner like the scared baby I am, and that worked very well. There was a sentry bot and a whole other area filled with tunnelers, which I just ran past. At this point, I didn't have the time to spare to dick around with more tunnelers. I ended up accidentally going too far and missed the building the elite armor was in and had to reload a save. Thankfully, I finally figured out the building it was in, and I only had to go through a sewer pipe to get it. A sewer pipe filled with tunnelers. Yay. But I had the elite riot gear now, bringing my total crit chance up to a total of 28%. Now I could leave this hellhole and never come back. With the armor wrapped around my body, I went to the Ultralux to continue the main quest. Sadly, I didn't have the ability to convince them to join the Legion, and I had to leave and return to Caesar a disappointment. The next quest had me destroying the Brotherhood of Steel bunker, and I figured this would be fairly easy. I arrived, was taken into custody, and had to deal with the Ranger to get full access to the bunker. Easy peasy. I've killed like 50 NCR soldiers at this point. After that, my explosive collar was removed, and I was allowed free access to the bunker. I proceeded to steal the 3 keycards I needed to activate the self-destruct sequence, then destroyed the bunker. I didn't have any turbo for the escape sequence, so this part got a little dicey, but I managed. I returned to the man who looked awfully similar to my dad and had a private conversation with him about his brain owies. I informed him I should be able to perform the surgery once I had the right tools and headed to the New Vegas Medical Clinic to pick said tools up. After that, I performed the surgery and he was all better, immediately waking up after the surgery. My next task was to assassinate President Kimball. I agreed and leveled up to 18. I put the points into medicine and picked the better criticals perk, which would be fairly handy since I'm getting so many of them. Assassinating the president would be child's play. I just had to put on the little NCR costume and stay far enough away from the troopers that they wouldn't notice I wasn't one of them. After that, I took a dose of steady, primed my compliance regulator, and regulated the crap out of Kimball. Funnily enough, after I killed him, I didn't have to kill any of the other troopers. I just went to the very back side of the dam and hid until I could fast travel. Back to Caesar, and I could now start the second battle of Hoover Dam. Of course, I didn't feel ready for this, so now is the part of the challenge where it gets kinda memey. So I wanted to have a little bit of fun before the final battle, and I wanted to get to level 22 so I could get the Laser Commander perk, which would give me 10% critical chance when using lasers. I was only level 18, so that was 4 levels away. I had to figure out some quests to do in the meantime. For starters, I stopped at the New Vegas Medical Clinic and bought 2 implants, one that would regenerate my health, and one that would give me extra DT. Then I started to make my way towards Red Rock Canyon so I could be the Great Khan's drug runner for a bit. I taught Jack how to make a few drugs, and then talked to Diane about Anders. On my way to Cottonwood Cove, I finally finished the Boulder City Showdown quest the fun way, and freed Anders from his predicament. The next part of Diane's quest sent me to the Crimson Caravan Company, where I was immediately shot on sight, but was able to talk to Don nonetheless. Back to Diane, and I am directed to Vault 3, home of the Fiends, to make a drug run to Motor Runner. Thankfully, the Great Khan disguise I was given allowed me to walk around the vault unscathed, and I took my sweet time gathering as many vault suits as I could before I finished the delivery. Back to Diane for my reward, and it's on to the next quest. I decided to pay the Powder Gangers at the NCRCF a visit so I could do their quest. Not much to say about these, except for the last part where I get to slaughter a whole bunch of NCR troopers. I decided I'd try and help the other Powder Gangers at Vault 19, and got a decent way into the quest, but came to a halt when I didn't have the explosive skill or general knowledge of this quest to continue. I was able to snag a few more vault suits though, which was important. After a while, I remembered that I could do the Garrett's quest, and made my way to the Atomic Wrangler. I started with Francine's quest, which involved me going around town collecting dats. My favorite part was when I just straight up punched Santiago in the face. Once I was done, I was given one last quest, which was to deal with Caleb, and I took James's quest to find some escorts. I planned on letting Caleb live until he told me to piss off. Probably not the smartest move on his part. I returned to Francine and leveled up to 20. I dumped the points into speech and picked the tag perk and put that into speech as well. Before finding the escorts, I decided to head out to Vault 34 hoping to collect a few more suits for Sarah at Vault 21. It was chock full of ghouls, and very little suits happened to be there, but what little I got was worth it. I finally had enough suits to make the sex. I returned to Sarah, sweet-talked her into accepting the suits for the intercourse, and went downstairs to oil some leather. Kinky. Funnily enough, I always talk about how I never sleep in hardcore mode and rely on Nuka-Cola and atomic cocktails, but this didn't count as sleep. I wonder why. Once I got all of the oil off of me, I started recruiting all of the escorts I would need, like Old Ben, Beatrix, or Fisto, and you gotta know that I tested Fisto out before I returned him to James. Once James was satisfied with my recruitment, I headed for the final quest I'd do before the Battle of Hoover Dam. I made my way to the Thorn and talked with Red Lucy a bit. I could feel it coming in the air, but the only way she would is if I risked life and limb collecting an absolute crap ton of eggs, starting with mantis eggs. Not much to say here, I just went to Vault 22, ran around killing mantis for a while, and found an egg mound. With the eggs in my possession, it was back to Red Lucy for more egg gathering. Rad scorpions this time. This was actually pretty hard, as the rad scorpions are large, and there were many. Thankfully, they complied, and I was able to grab the eggs, and once again return to Red Lucy for my reward, which was more egg gathering. Fire geckos, not hard to deal with at all, but they gave decent experience. Man, she really makes you work for it, as I had to grab Night Stalker eggs next. Kinda difficult, but man is it fun to skeet shoot these guys. Cazador's next, and as you expected, it was pretty damn hard. Thankfully, I had just enough anti-venom to get me through the worst of it, and I had the eggs in no time. I also leveled up to 22 finally, and put the points into survival and picked the Laser Commander perk, bringing my crit chance up to a whopping 38% total. More than a third of all shots will paralyze the target. Groovy. I decided to finish up the quest anyway, and traveled to the cave filled to the brim with death claws. Thankfully, most shots paralyze, and I had some turbo to get me through the worst of it without dying. Now it was time to make the sweet, sweet loves to Red Lucy. Better be worth all those goddamn eggs. Okay, enough dicking around. It's time to get serious again. I needed to restock all of my ammo and repair my stuff as well. I made sure to buy any extra laser pistols that weren't Gunrunner's arsenal, as they won't repair the Regulator, and I made my way back to the Divide to repair my stuff via the commissary. See, I told you it'd be important late game. I was ready now. I returned to Caesar and told him it was time. This teleported me to the Legate's camp, and he told me what needed to be done. The walk across the dam was so pitifully easy that I actually felt bad for the NCR. They stood no chance against me and the Regulator. Even the NCR Rangers were a cakewalk. Maybe I should start doing more Legion playthroughs, as it's way easier to kill the troopers rather than some Centurions or Praetorians. Inside of the dam was more or less the same thing. I killed who I could and ran from the rest to save time and ammo. When I finally arrived face to face with General Oliver, I expected a raging battle, and what I got was a bunch of losers cosplaying as the NCR. I swear to God, I remember this part being so much harder than it was, but none of the soldiers stood a chance against me and the Regulator. Eventually, I killed Oliver and his personal escort of the NCR heavy troopers, and that was it. I beat the game using only the compliance Regulator. Okay, when I thought of this challenge, I really expected it to be much harder than it actually was, and I'm sorry about that. The Regulator is definitely capable of being its own weapon, and not just a sidearm. I promise, though, that the next challenge will be much more difficult. I'd bet all of the caps I have from drinking Sunset Sarsaparilla on it. If you enjoyed today's video, leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out. Also, check out some of my other challenges. If you like this one, I'm sure you'll like those too. Take a look at the Discord and Patreon. I left links to both in the description. Thanks to my patrons, Riley Anderson, Jamie East, and Dr. Maritimus. Y'all are the best. Thanks to 6 weirdly compliant rats in a trench coat for helping me write this script. No matter what I say, they will write it down. And until next time, stay safe out there, and peace out.